All right. Well, welcome everybody again to our first 2023 Latino Talk Series. My name is Dawn Cordero. I am the national president of Hacemos, and I am overly excited to have such an esteemed panel. And I'm not going to spill or take too much the thunder away from Diego Garza, who is our Desert Southwest president. And he is going to be the moderator for today's panel. So Diego, I'm going to hand it over to you and let you introduce our esteemed panelists.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me do a quick sound check. Can you hear me, Don?
You're good to go.
Perfect. So, we're live here, people, right? And sometimes we run into inclement weather that really puts us in a situation where we have to tackle the adversity, right? So I lost my video, but I have full audio, and I'm going to walk you guys through a very special 2023 launch of Latino Talks, right, with our co-founders of Faith at Work. And really what I want to do, first of all, I want to give a quick shout out to our national president, Don, for putting this together, and the assistance of Nora Colindres, our VP historian out of Desert Southwest, and excited to be here with our co-founders and really understand how the faith and our religion bring us together and bring in the diversity and inclusion that AT&T supports across our nation. With that being said, I have three really, really special panelists with us today. I have Seth Zimmer. He is our current Assistant Vice President of Organizational Assessment and Development at AT&T. He's been with us for about 33 years, very, very well accomplished. I just want to let you guys know he's got a PhD in industrial and organizational psychology from Old Dominion University. So super glad to have Seth part of the Blue brand, right? And with us, we have our second co-founder, Mohammed Fashouri, Director of Global Citizenship and Sustainability with the organization. And fun fact, recently, Mohammed was Person of the Year for HSNT and Asian Chamber of Texas Diversity Leader Award. So big accomplishments there. We also brought in Jackie Rubio. She is our Director of Sales out in Arizona, right? And she leads the way. She started out in South Texas. She went to New York, New Jersey, and most recently leading the pack in Arizona. And she's going to give us the insight of how understanding our people and who they are and what we are now helps us drive in our business and helps us bring folks together. So with that being said, Seth, I'm going to pass it over to you. I know I talked a little bit about you, but I want you to add some color behind some of the accomplishments that you bring to AT&T and some of your experience within ERG.
Thanks, Diego. So as was said, I've been around a long time. I'm kind of old, and that's, you see me on camera, and it's true. So I've had the privilege of being part of the AT&T family for over 30 years. I can certainly talk about my work accomplishments, but when I think back on my career, I really think the highlight has been, along with Mohammed, the co-founding of Faith at Work. For me, it was, so I'm Jewish. There's there are a number of Jewish employees, but certainly not a lot. For me, sort of, I had one of those final straw moments, and I realized that, it's easy to complain about something. It's a lot more interesting to actually try and do something to fix it. And that's really what started me, hooking up with Mohammed to start Faith at Work as a way to really help people bring their authentic selves to work, and to dismiss the misperception that you can't talk about faith at work. You really can, and it's okay. Nothing bad happens. So I'll leave it there for now.
Seth, I appreciate your leadership behind this and really tackling on a topic that can be sensitive, but Faith at Work is showing us that it is possible to have these types of conversations and really learn about each other. So I wanted to shift over to Mohammed, right? And, we talked about some of your accomplishments here in the organization, but wanted to lean in, see if you can give us a little bit more color behind Faith at Work and what brought you guys to this point.
Absolutely. First of all, thank you for hosting this important conversation, much needed conversation. So, as Seth mentioned, it was personal, and we wanted to not be optimistic but hopeful, right? There's a big difference being optimistic and being hopeful. So hope is a verb, right? Like we have to take action, and we jumped in, and my name announces my faith before I walk into the room. That's the fact. You're having a meeting with Muhammad. There is a 99.9% possibility that you're meeting a Muslim guy. And so just like, our race, our nationality, ethnicity, language we speak, everything. Another thing to, Muhammad is a immigrant, born and raised in India, Gen Xer, blah, 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 and I'm a Muslim. So that piece, that very important piece that plays such a big role in our life was missing in the conversation. And it's not about Muhammad trying to convert you or anything, but if you don't know that someone sitting next to you is fasting today, or like someone on your team is Zoroastrian or Jain or Sikh or whatever faith they believe in, it's a gap. It's an opportunity as a company. If you have employees in India and it's Diwali today, and you have no idea what Diwali is, you missed an opportunity to reach out to you and build that connection with your team, right? So, or having a Hindu team member who probably celebrating a major festival. It's like Christmas for them, but you have no idea. So you see, what we're trying to do is we felt that this awareness is equally important to all the other topics that we've been talking about. There was a time we couldn't talk about race at AT&T. There was a time we couldn't talk about LGBTQ community. So slowly, we have created a very inclusive environment where people can bring their authentic self to work every day, but they still felt that, there was a gap. What is missing? Well, faith is one of those subjects that's missing. And I know that a lot of people, faith plays a big role. And faith is very different from religion. That's why it's not called religion at AT&T. It's called faith at work, right? So just wanted to share that thought behind this, and that it was more about awareness, education, inclusiveness, creating a platform where people get comfortable in having these conversations. It was not about preaching or prayers, or it was more about the diversity of faith around us, and people should know about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the fact that you brought up the connectivity side of things, right? And understanding our people in order to add extra layers of connection, right? And I think that goes a long way. It shows that from a leadership perspective, you're willing to learn and get outside of that comfort zone for your people. So appreciate those comments there. I'm gonna move over to Jackie, right? And Jackie, from your leadership perspective, why is this so important? And what religion or faith do you identify yourself with?
Jack, you're on mute.
You might be on mute.
Bam. Now?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
It's okay. We're all
Okay.
having blame it on the weather.
Playing with the star sticks. Awesome. Alrighty. Well, first off, I want to say, Diego, I agree. I'm very thankful to be not only part of this call today, but to be amongst, Mohammed and Seth. I have actually heard a lot about them because of this organization, you could say, when it comes to faith. I have an interesting story. My parents raised me Catholic. I come from my father being from Central America, my mom being from South America, and they actually had different religions, right? My mom has always been the beacon of faith in our family, I will say. And once I became older, I remember I was invited to a Hillsong youth concert when I was like a sophomore in high school. And I remember being so driven by the worship piece. And so to me, it changed. And I remember it was interesting because I had to tell my parents that it wasn't that I wasn't comfortable with being Catholic or going to hear the Catholic service. It was more of what did I identify with, what spoke to me. And, you know, what spoke to me the most is identifying myself as a Christian non-denominational. And that's the way that I raised my son. And I'm driven by that. And I believe that I am a better person, or at least try to be a better person because of that. When it comes to the environment that I work in, I often tell my people, I'm like, anyone that has survived in the retail organization can go and work anywhere else with AT&T. But my true ground, my foundation is my faith, believing that there is something bigger out there, that he keeps me together, something that looks over me, and that in the most hardest times, and there's like my favorite worship song called Promise by Maverick City. And it's such a powerful worship song because the lyrics speak about that promise. It's similar to Muhammad. It's about the faith, not the religion. And what does that faith do to you? And it is my faith that allows me to wake up each and every day and be who I am. So that would be the answer for me.
Perfect. I love the fact that you got personal with us, right? And that tells us the foundation that faith keeps us aligned and is still part of the business, right? And I appreciate Mohammed and Seth for bringing Faith at Work, where these conversations can happen, right? And so I wanted to take some time here with Faith at Work, and I wanted to read the mission statement because I want to understand how both of you got to this point, and what was the process to making sure that this message is read, right? So the mission for Faith at Work, to create an inclusive platform that brings people of diverse faiths and beliefs together for education on religious diversity, dialogue, collaboration, and community engagement as demonstration of our shared beliefs. So I'll take that over to Seth first. Tell us about that mission statement. What does it mean to you and the message that you're really trying to deliver?
So let me share maybe what started it for me, or that final straw. So I was in Atlanta at the time, and I was asked to go to Dallas to participate in a town hall meeting. So I was reporting up to the chief diversity officer. So that was my chain of command, and you know, it was just easier to have all the presenters in the studio in Dallas. That's fine. Happy to go. I asked, when is it? The date was on Rosh Hashanah. So, you know, if there's sort of like for Jews, there are lots of holidays, but the biggies are Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. So if you're not a terribly observant Jew, those tend to be the ones you observe. So I said, I can't go. It's Rosh Hashanah. So the response was, well, okay, you don't have to travel. You can do it from Atlanta. Nah, that's not my point. I'm not going to be working that day, and there's silence. And you know, wasn't the first time that I sort of had that type of experience. and I just think it was handled very poorly. Now, the irony is it was up, it wasn't with the chief, it was with the chief diversity officer, chief of staff. So that's an interesting irony to it in that organization. But it also made me realize that while I don't have I'm comfortable expressing how ridiculous I think it is. I don't know that everybody else is. And I think that sometimes we, members of the AT&T community, are asked to sometimes make decisions or choices that we really don't have to make, but we feel like we do. And I'm also surprised that for a global company, we sometimes operate like a mom and pop shop, that we're kind of unaware that others may be a little bit different. We spend a lot of time talking about some obvious differences, so gender, ethnicity, and I think, if I look at our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, if I look at sort of all of the good work that the DE&I team does, look at all the different employee resource groups, employee networks, I think we have a lot to be proud of. The thing up to recently that we never really talked about was faith, and there is no rule about talking about it. It just creates a lot of discomfort for people. That's what it is. It's uncomfortable to have the conversation. And you look at what's in the news, and you generally don't see news stories about how faiths get along. You see stories about how faiths don't. And for me, it was how do we make it okay to have the conversation? Clearly in the mission statement, it's about learning about each other. It's about how do you treat others better? How do you communicate so you can be treated better? I always use the phrase, we're not recruiting to a club. So we're not here to find, have people become Jewish or become Muslim or Christian or whatever the faith is. It's just about learning about each other.
Wow. Talk about, getting into the uncomfortable, right? And it really shows your leadership stuff of your experience and amplifying it to others, right? I'm gonna switch over to Mohammed, right? And there's a statement in one of our prep calls that you made, Mohammed, about this mission statement, and it's understanding who we are not, right? And during that prep session after I got off, it really hit me, right? It really hit me, and this mission statement, to me, it embodies that. So I'll pass it over to you and take us through the mission statement and your thought process in understanding who we are not.
Absolutely. And I think Seth kind of covered it. Initially, we weren't prepared to spend so much time and energy on explaining what we are not, because we thought that it was very clear. We are Faith at Work, and we are trying to create an inclusive employee resource group. Yes, it took us almost, 2.5 years to launch it, because we spend a lot of time and energy convincing people that, it's a good thing, to talk about faith at work. And to your point of comfortableness, that was the goal, to get comfortable, to have uncomfortable conversations. And this was one of the most uncomfortable conversations, which is not a hard thing to do, but, hey, let's come talk about faith. So it's, as we launched it, then the type of questions that started coming up, right? The kind of audience that either got very upset or got very excited made us realize that, okay, I think people have not realized what we are. And so we hosted multiple conversations, and the kind of questions, the doubts that were coming. What is your purpose? Are you a prayer group? Is your purpose to preach? Is your purpose to convert? Is your purpose to create public policy around religious policies? Like what? And we're like, oh my God, like, God, we need to like stop press. We need to go back and start working on some of our statements. And that is our goal. I think we'll spend probably another year trying to explain to people what we are not. And we are an inclusive employee resource group formed to promote the diversity of faith and create faith conversations so people have a good understanding, remove misconceptions, mistrust about other faiths, and understand that it's celebrate the diversity and the commonalities that we have within faith. And I know we're going to kind of deep dive into that a little bit, but what we are not is we're not here to preach religion. We're not hosting prayer sessions. We're not doing preaching. We're not trying to convert anyone, nor any of our speakers are. We just want people to know that just like you know that Muhammad is Asian, Muhammad is Muslim, Muhammad is an immigrant, I want you to also know that Muhammad is a Muslim. That's it. And what does Muhammad celebrate? What's going on? And if Muhammad is fasting, is someone celebrating Holi in Hindu festival? Is someone Zoroastrian? How are they going to celebrate Nowruz in March? It's one of the oldest religions in the world. So every country, every city, in some parts of India, there's so much beauty and diversity of faith. And sometimes we miss that opportunity to have that conversation and another thing is making people comfortable to have that conversation, because in most cases, no question is a bad question when it comes to faith. Most people are just scared of having that conversation. So we're just making people comfortable, and hopefully we'll achieve that soon. So hopefully that answered your question, Diego.
Absolutely. I love the fact that you guys are building a community where folks are acknowledging what's important to us on the faith aspect of things. And they're also educating, we are also educating ourselves on others in order to serve others,
And
right?
Diego, I do want to mention, none of us are experts when it comes to religion. We're not experts.
Right.
Seth and I are not experts on Judaism and Islam, but we just connected. We call ourselves co-instigators, and it's like even though I don't drink, but we have a joke. A Jewish guy and a Muslim guy walked into a bar and created an ERG, right? That's how our joke starts, and we both connected, and we're like, we gotta go and we removed the first misconception out there, right? A Jewish guy and a Muslim guy. There's so many misconceptions about our faith out there, so just wanted to throw that out and share that we are not experts. None of our board members are like experts. We see Amir on the call, we're just average employees out there, and we belong to a faith, and we're here to talk about it. And if we don't have the answer, we'll go find someone who can.
I love it.
Well said, Mohammed. Well said.
It's great. I'm going to take you guys to a deeper dive with our panelists, right? And we're going to exercise really getting to know our folks, right? So here's the question, and I'll start off with Jackie on this one. What are some common misconceptions people may have about your religion or faith?
So before I answer that question, Diego, I think that the first thing that's important to mention is respect. I think that when we speak to, what Mohammed and Seth have started, and to hear all the objections that happen, it comes because sometimes it's hard for us to respect differences. And it's a reality, right? Especially in corporate America. And we all look different, and we can accept that one. But when it comes to religion, we create stigmas and beliefs. I'll tell you now that for the culture that I represent, not the culture, I'm sorry, my spirituality, my faith, People probably think that all I do is wake up and I'm blasting like worship music, morning to night. And the reality is that no, that's not all what Christianity is. Christianity for me, right? It's my relationship with God. How can I speak to him in a way that he knows my deepest pains. He knows my deepest thoughts, the good and the bad. And, I think that that's having a good relationship. And the spirituality for me, Diego, is not just going to church. And I've had this conversation with a peer, actually, friend, a couple of days ago. And I said, you know what, after the pandemic, I think that a lot of people thought that it was going to be easy to just go to church. And in my, in the church that I go to, they'll even say it, like, come to the house of God, and part of me gets anxious because even in church, there's people that judge you. You're not Christian enough, or you're not worshiping hard enough, things like that, right? So I think, I wouldn't say that there's misconceptions, Diego, when it comes to what people believe. I think that it comes down to respecting that everybody's path in their faith is individual. And that's one thing that it's hard for many to understand, but it's important to be aware of, to know that everybody's faith and their steps are very different, that one doesn't relate to others, and that sometimes even within the church, you can be chastised for apparently not being a great believer or a big believer. So those are the things that I'll tell you that in my personal life I've encountered, inside at work and even in the church.
Yeah, I like the fact that you brought up that different people have individualities and different levels, and it goes back to Muhammad and Seth, right? We are not experts at any of this, but there is a sense of respect, as you highlighted. So I appreciate those comments. I'm gonna switch over to Muhammad, right? And the question on the table is, what are some common misconceptions people may have about your religion or faith?
So I'm Muslim, so there are no misconceptions about my faith out there. Let me just say it out there. I'm just kidding, right? It's there's so many misconceptions out there about Islam, and I don't even know where to start. So one of the biggest misconception is that Islam is a Middle Eastern religion. It started there, but just to give you an idea, if you just combine the population of Indonesia, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, that's like 800 million Muslims. I was born and raised in India. India has 200 million Muslims. So Islam is not limited to a region. Islam is a religion practiced by people of every race, every country, every nationality out there. And, so it's and the most, another misconception is that, like from an Abrahamic faith point of view, that Muslims worship a different God. It's just a name, it's a language, it's the Semitic languages that it's almost like we say when we read Bible in Arabic, the name for God in the Arabic is Allah. That's how simple it is. And in any other Semitic language, El, Elahi, Elahim, Allah, those are the words. So, just wanted to share that a lot of misconceptions out there that Muslims worship a different God or, those kind of things. And the importance of education, importance of women, the role women have played in Islam is very superior. It's just one of the oldest, not one of the oldest university in Morocco that's still functioning, 880 or something. It was started by Muslim women, and the Huarein University. So I recommend people to, have these kind of conversations with people and salam alaikum, like when we greet, I say salam alaikum, it's shalom alaikum in Hebrew, right? It means peace be upon you. And if you read a Bible in Hebrew and you see, say, John 20:21, and Jesus said, shalom alaikum, peace be upon you. I'm literally greeting you in the language of that era. So I'm not saying something, it's just because it's not English, it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean much. So just wanted to share that it's a lot of it's language, culture that creates barriers. But if the more conversations we have, you'll see the similarities, and it removes these misconceptions people have about Islam.
Yeah, that's really interesting, right? And so just finding a common ground here. So I'm Mexican, right? And we have this saying, it's adios, right? And if you really break it down, it means may you go with God. And it's really interesting how you brought up one word and the definition behind it, and really understanding what that means for everybody else. So appreciate the comments there. Before I kick it over to Seth, I want to open it up for the panel. Don, I'm kind of flying blind here. I don't have access to the chat, but if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'm sure Don will help me out with that. But moving over to Seth, right? And the question on the table is, what are some common misconceptions people may have about your religion or faith?
So, the first, I'll get to your question in 1 second. I need to just recognize something that Jackie said, and that's everybody's path is individual. I'm going to use that line because that really, I think that says a lot, because now to your question, Diego, I suspect that many people who know that I'm involved with faith at work make the assumption that I'm a very observant Jew. And I am not. For me, my reason for wanting to do something like this is more out of a sense of what's right than my just sort of my faith. And when I think of some of the misperceptions, it's sort of the real unfortunate thing is so many of them are built around ignorance. If this is an awful time for anti-Islam sentiment, anti-Semitism. Both are we haven't seen this in this country and around the world for a long time. It's scary. And when you talk to some of these haters, and you say, so tell me, how many Jews do you know? Many times they don't. They just hear things. So, some common misperceptions about Jews is they control the media and financial institutions. Jews are greedy. Jews are aligned to Israel, so they can't be real Americans. And just like with any, sometimes there's more truth than others, but these generalizations are made by people who don't know. And it's not just against Jews. I mean, you find, as Muhammad was saying, it's true against Muslims, and most faiths. It's sort of it comes with being different. So, I think sometimes it's important that we ask ourselves, all right, do I have why do I think that? Is it someone said it? Do I have an experience? Or am I just ignorant? And that's a hard question for people to ask of themselves, and harder to answer.
Right. I like the fact that you emphasize the zoom out, right? And I think a lot of times these misconceptions are a zoom in, and you said, you have to stop and you got to think, is this because I don't know, or is it because I'm making an assumption, or just plain ignorant, right? And that zoom out helps us understand where our thought process is at, right? And I think it happens. and appreciate the comments behind that, Seth. Don, do we have any questions out there?
Hey, Diego, we've actually got some great conversation in the chat. I think I love to see that, we've got multiple people asking questions, other people responding to those questions. So it's great to see the different perspectives that everybody's having and sharing in the chat room. So please, definitely keep going. If you're not in the chat, join us in the chat because there's some great conversation on faith versus religion, right? What's the difference? So maybe the panelists want to give us your perspective on that. We've got quite a few folks who have chimed in, but would love to hear from the panel.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's take that one. Mohammed, you want to go?
Yeah. So the way I see faith is it's, how we use the word faith, right? It's like trust. It's complete trust, complete confidence in something or someone, right? Whereas when it comes to religion, it's very, it involves the code of ethics, a system of belief and worship. Like you have to pray this many times, you have to hold something like this, and you have to bow like this. And so that's religion. That's very, like a code of ethics, as I mentioned. But I think, Jackie, what you mentioned is faith right there, right? Like individuality, how you worship, how you behave, how you treat others, all of that, right? Because I have met some very religious people of faith who I wouldn't trust, but then at the same time, I know some people who are atheists and they're beautiful people. So it's all about individuality, right? And the way I see faith and religion is the commonality is it gives you hope, it gives you a purpose in life to keep on going. It creates action in your life, not give up, to believe in something bigger than you, and it gives you hope. So more power to people who believe, and more power to people who don't, because it goes back down to being an individual, and that's how I see it. It's more of complete trust versus following a set of rules and laws. Seth, Jackie, anything you want to add to that?
I guess so. So for Mohammed and I, the faith versus religion was something that we had a lot of conversation about, because it sort of gets to the heart of faith at work. For me, like, religion are the rules. Judaism has 613 rules. It's, you're following this or you're not. It tends to be a little bit more black and white. I think faith is what guides you, hopefully, your moral compass and the way you treat people, and how you live your life.
And for me, it's the same, Diego. I would say, similar to Seth, it is the rules. I believe that in religion, that's where you receive the doctrine, right, of what it is that you want to believe in, what it is, that you should be better. For me, for example, you live by the 10 Commandments, right? And we know that's not just 10 Commandments, but that's the one that we talk about the most. I believe that religion sometimes, and for me, religion sometimes is what feeds your faith. I'll tell you now, I can say, similar to what you said, Mohammed, and I love that, is faith is hope. Faith is what keeps you yearning for more, what makes you believe that even in the darkest days, there is someone out there looking for you, looking out for you. That is my faith. But I do believe that the religion piece does go hand in hand sometimes, because it educates you, it provides you that doctrine, and it fuels and it feeds into your spirituality in order for you to be true in your faith. So yeah, I like everyone's answers. That was so good.
Yeah, you guys brought up some really, really good comments there. I didn't identify my religion right, but I identify myself as Christian. And, the religious side of things definitely takes care of my ethics, and the faith is the reason I wake up every morning, right? And the vision or the light at the end of the tunnel, if you will. So appreciate those comments. We talked about misconceptions and we talked about differences, right? And so the next question that I have is I want to talk about commonalities, right? And how are in your experience, what are some commonalities that your religion or faith has with other religions or faith? So I'll kick it off to Seth and take us through that question from your perspective.
Well, so the first thing I'll say where I think we start to see a lot of commonalities are foods. You start having conversations with colleagues who are from a different faith or religion, and hopefully it eventually gets to talking about food, because who doesn't like to talk about that? And you hear about you sort of hear about you start talking about a celebration, and we had these all these foods, and you say, gee, really? I mean, we do something like that's similar, and most of the time the good stuff are the fried foods, which tend to be pretty common across a lot of different faiths. Some of the ceremonies. A number of the Jewish ceremonies involve light and candles. Same thing in some, many of the Christian ceremonies. Fasting tends to be part of a sort of a certain celebrations, holidays. When you start to have these conversations, how covering your head, walking into a place of worship. It might look a little bit different, but you start to talk about, gee, we do some things like that's similar. It's amazing the number of commonalities you find, but it's also sort of not surprising, because at least the Abrahamic religions are all related. So it's like we go, oh wow, I didn't know that, and we're surprised when in fact, yeah, it all sort of had the same origin.
I love it. Seth, really organic conversation here. My favorite is probably the food commonality and the food differences. So if there's ever a feast, invite me over. I'm there. So let's move over to Mohammed, right? In your experience, what are some commonalities that your religion, faith, has with other religions or faiths?
Oh, there's so many, right? I mean, just talking about food, kosher and halal, so similar, right? A lot of people don't know the difference, but it's very similar, and it's very cultural. And the way we pray, right? Like the way Muslims pray. In fact, a lot of the steps we take in our religious prayer, they're like Marian nature. It's actually how Mother Mary used to pray, and it's. There's an entire chapter called Mary in the Quran. People don't know that, and so it's the more you read and how the prophets back in, like if you read the Old, how they used to fall on the ground and pray. That's how Muslims, like the way things have evolved. It's when you think about it, yes, it may look very primitive, like why are you on the ground with your head on the floor and why are you praying like that? But that's how everyone used to pray back in the days, right? So a lot of, and then language, I kind of mentioned it, a lot of words, the words for God in Aramaic, in Hebrew, and Arabic are exactly the same. Amharic, all these Semitic languages, the commonality is, especially with at least the three major religions, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, is Abraham, and so it's sometimes the difference is as thin as a line of a pen. Like when you start going back and reading things and understanding, and when you travel, I tell people travel, and you'll see the commonalities. When I went to Spain, I couldn't believe how many words in Spanish are from Arabic.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like 3,000 words in Spanish are Arabic words.
Yeah.
Anything with A-L, right, is Arabic. I didn't even know, like, Wadi al-Hara is Guadalajara, the valley. It's Wadi is valley. Like, it's just these commonalities. And when you start reading the religious books in the actual language, then you say, oh my God, like, this is amazing. So I tell people, read, travel, talk to people, and you'll see how how similar we all. Same thing, there's so many commonalities with Hinduism, Zoroastrianism. There are connections with a lot of traditions that people follow from the Wiccan religion. I mean, if you connect the dots, you can connect the dot with every faith, because people travel. They took their cultures, people took their language, and things got lost in translation. But at the end of the day, most of the religions are very common.
Yeah, recently I have a friend that is Muslim, and I was surprised that there's even prophets that are both in the Quran and in the Bible. So that's my personal experience and learnings, right? So appreciate the comments there. So I'm gonna pass it over to Jackie, and then we'll move over to Don. Don, we're coming into time here, but Jackie, in your experience, what are some commonalities that your religion faith has with other religions or faith?
So I'll speak to Semana Santa. That's Spanish for like the Holy Week. And if you think about it, it happens in the same time, in the same month that Ramadan starts. Clearly they do it, and correct me, Mohammed, I'm sorry, right? 29, 30 days. But the purpose is similar. I'll tell you now, in my religion during that week, and what we do, and this is since I've been little, we would wake up at 5 a.m. So to pray, that's what would start us. That's what would fuel us. And the purpose, I say, for Semana Santa, which is similar to other religions, when they do things to more observe your inner self, you do fasting, you do prayer, because in the Bible it says that that's the time when you're going to hear God, right? So similarities like that exist in many religions. But we often do it during that time frame because it's biblical. It means something. But I would say that that's like the similarity that I identify the most with.
Yeah, really, really good observation here, right? Fasting across different religions or faiths. You'll see it everywhere. Good call out. With that being said, Don, I'm gonna pass it over to you. I know we're down to a couple of minutes here in order to meet time. So I believe we have a small Q&A or some ending remarks, but nonetheless, I'll pass it over to you, Don.
Thank you, Diego. Appreciate it. And thank you to all of our panelists. We do have some time. I'm going to be pulling out a few questions that we have in the chat. But first, I think just circling back to what you guys just said about the similarities, I think just with faith in itself, from my perspective, it's all about acceptance, inclusivity, and peace, right? Those are the three for me. That's a trifecta right there. That's your three dots that you connect. And I think that no matter what your faith or no faith is, as long as those are the things that we adhere to, acceptance, inclusivity, and peace, I think that, the world in general would be a better place, right? And to multiply what we have going on here at Faith at Work and at AT&T. So thank you guys. So we're going to take a few questions. I'm going to scroll through, but while we do, I'm going to pull out here. Mohammed, I forgot. If I don't ask, somebody's going to call me out on it. People are wondering about your shirt. They're loving your shirt.
I'm trying to get this shirt on the brand shop, but I don't think it's going to happen. But I may have a few. If you're in Dallas, reach out to me.
Yeah. And take a number. It's going to be like the DMV office. There's a few folks in front of you.
I may have 3, 4. So first come, first serve. So I know, Don, you already. So I'm gonna
Mine set aside. I
Yeah.
loved it too. Yeah, so thank you. The other one is spiritual. So some folks in the chat, you'll see they talk about spirituality. So just in closing, maybe we only have a few minutes, but would anybody like to make any comments on spirituality, faith, and religion, and what, maybe the differences of those three, or the similarities on what they mean to you?
I see faith and spirituality very similar to, how people see faith versus religion. So that's how I see it. I think faith and spiritualities are very similar. And I'd love to hear from Seth and Jackie. Do you see any difference?
So,
There we go.
oh, go ahead, Jackie.
No, go, Seth. Go.
So I guess for me, and it's really just it's an arbitrary distinction. For me, I hear spirituality and it seems much more abstract. I will say for me the spiritual part is a challenge. That's sort of not that I challenge with considering myself. I don't know that I would consider myself a spiritual person. So to me that's there's an abstractness, but a depth that I don't know that I have.
I'm 100% with Seth. I would say the same thing. Again, religion to me is what you said earlier, Seth. It's the rules piece. It's what feeds into that faith piece. But they do go hand in hand. Personally, my faith has grown as I have grown in my religion piece. So, for example, I think one of my 2023 goals is start Bible studies. And I do that because I want to feed into my faith. I want to feed into my spirituality. And that's the way that, in my opinion, I keep that alive within myself.
Great. Thank you.
There is a question from Weston.
Yes.
And I would like to address that. Can you explain the role of religion in slavery? Weston, that question should be a panel or a conversation by itself, right? Again, disclaimer, none of us are experts on this subject or topic, but I can give you my personal opinion that religion was absolutely used to justify slavery. Religion is still used to justify, misogyny, gender inequality, or homophobia in the world. So it's a fight that's going on, right? It goes back to the point individuality. It steals individuality, individual right, freedom, and I think that's a conversation that needs to happen. And I'm glad you asked that question, because now Seth and I know, and we have our board members on the call, that's a topic that needs to be discussed. And I would love for you or whoever else on this call that needs to join, and we can discuss it, because it's faith, not just slavery, but when you look at all the issues around the world, there are people out there who have misused faith to oppress others. So just wanted to throw that out. I don't know if I answered the question, but that was my personal opinion.
Yeah, thank you for having the courage to answer it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mohammed. All right, Diego, I'm going to pass it over to you. We're right at noon Central, so we are going to close. So Diego, we'll let you close. And just as a reminder, we will be posting today's conversation for you to view later, and you will be receiving a brief survey. Please take just a few moments. Literally, it takes 15 seconds to complete. It's 4 questions long, but these topics that we discuss and you hear from these panelists are because our members, people like you who join these calls, you guys ask for these questions and you ask for these topics. And so we'd really love your feedback on that. So Diego, I'm going to pass over to you just to close us out.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thanks for everybody to join today, right? Second of all, thanks to the panelists and all the insights that you bring. thank you to Seth and Mohammed for really tackling on a diversity and inclusion topic that can be very sensitive, but you are making it a conversation that is comfortable, right? With that being said, I also want to thank Don and Nora for putting this together. And lastly, I'll leave you with this. If you don't understand, educate yourself. Take the time to step back and really ask yourself, where did that thought come from? So with that being said, I appreciate each one of you guys. You have a wonderful day. And yeah, go out there, learn some stuff.